Hello and welcome to the Health Wizard podcast with your host, Elena Wilkins, who happens to be me. I'm so excited that you are choosing to listen to this podcast because you're choosing to put your health as your priority. This podcast is dedicated to teaching the most natural, amazing means that you can use to get your health back on track and reclaim the person that you used to be before getting sick. Now, very quickly, before we dive into the good stuff, I just wanted to remind you that this podcast is intended for educational and entertainment purposes only. My podcast is not a substitute for professional medical advice. If you have a medical condition, please seek the help of a licensed medical professional. We're not medical doctors and we do not treat, diagnose, prescribe, or make any claims outside of what we know or what we do. So by choosing to listen to our podcast, you take responsibility for your own actions. And if you hear the testimonials of people who were able to get well, you'll realize that their outcomes depended on their effort and their specific condition. With that said, let's jump into today's topic. Please enjoy. Hello, beautiful people. This is Elena. I'm coming your way with an amazing interview today. We'll be joined by Tammy, one of our graduates from the program, and we're going to talk about her progress and process going through what she dealt with her thyroid imbalance for many years before today. Welcome, Tammy. How are you?
I'm great. Thank you.
It is always a treat when a graduate comes our way. As you remember, before you joined the program, I sent you a couple of case studies, and they probably were inspirational.
Well, I actually watched a live interview like this, but before I even joined, and it was really helpful. It's actually one of my deciding factors to go ahead and join the program.
Oh, fantastic. So maybe today somebody else's deciding factor is you. Thank you so much. So Tammy, why don't we start with you? Why don't you give us a little bit of background on you? How did it all start with you? How did you know you had the issue? How did you get diagnosis? Basically what you and I did on the strategy call before you became a client. Remember that one?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of cue us in what was happening. So a little bit of history, please.
Absolutely. So it's been over 20 years now since I had been diagnosed with hypothyroidism. And I've been on medication for 20 some years. I did what everybody else does with hypothyroidism and just went to the doctor and got on medication and just figured that this was my life for the rest of my life of living on medication. I, over the years, have always believed that there was another way. I just never could find that way. I actually tried different things on my own and I never could actually find a solution. And so right before I met Elena, I was just in a really, really difficult place. I just was at the point where I was just so fatigued all the time and just so tired and just didn't have the energy. And I just really just felt so terrible that I wasn't doing the things that I love to do. I've been a runner. I've done marathons and triathlons and all of those things in the past. And I had stopped running basically because I had no energy and I didn't feel well. And my relationships were all really struggling. My marriage was struggling at that time. I just, was just desperate really for a solution. And so I started looking things up and I started finding Elena online. And then I started listening to things like this and just going onto her website and getting more information. That's kind of how my journey began.
Yeah. So, and thank you so much for sharing that. A part of what you mentioned is that your illness that was long-lived and you tried a lot of things, but it began to affect you in your life. And one of the things was relationships. Absolutely. It's a lot of times when we talk to women, since I work mostly with women, this is what we see. It's almost like a domino effect. You get bad, it gets worse. And then eventually it's your kids, it's your husband, it's your even employment that can suffer from that. And I remember, since you brought it up and I feel comfortable asking this now, you mentioned that your even marriage was suffering. And I don't know if you remember the question that I asked you on that call. I said, what is your biggest fear? And you were just filled with tears and you said, I'm afraid that our marriage will not make it because of it.
Yes.
Thank you for that admission in public here, because most of us women don't ever want to admit to that.
Yes, it was a really dark place for us. And, we were really struggling. I didn't know what that doing what I could do for myself through this program would help our relationship and, my other relationships so much, but it really has.
Yeah, well, and let's go to that one then. Before I actually do, you mentioned that you tried a lot of things. So would you mind mentioning what kind of things that you tried before you and I met?
Oh, I tried all the diets out there. I tried keto. I don't even know. I tried whatever, thing I read or whatever thing I should take. I was on, I don't even know, like 20 some pills a day for supplements, which actually the supplements initially helped me and kind of helped stabilize my emotions a little bit. But then I just felt like, well, now I'm just dependent on supplements. And I was spending a lot of money on those supplements too. I didn't really want to be, I would have my little med divider every morning and be taking morning, noon, and night and be taking all the supplements. And I didn't want to be doing that either, in addition to my synthroid. And so that didn't work out either. So I tried, whatever I read online or whatever I could do, and nothing. Some things may have helped, but it was never anything, that was sustaining.
And were you like a lot of us women? I'm guilty of this too. But were you spending a lot of time in research?
Oh, yes. Well, I'm a professor, and so research is, really something that I like to do and I love to learn. And so I read everything and I just researched as much as I possibly could to find a solution.
Yeah, on average, how many hours a week were you spending on research?
Oh, I have no idea. A lot. I just, I love to learn. And so when I got focused on that, I can't give you a number, but I was constantly just searching for an answer.
All right. Well, and fast forward, you and I talk, and that was a big decision. That was a decision. Always, whenever somebody talks to me, it's always the time commitment, the financial commitment, a lot, a lot of different things commitment. And you made that leap and you said yes. What was the biggest shocker for you as you began the program? Like something that you did not expect to work, but it worked for you?
Well, first of all, I just want to say that I was super skeptical when I first started, and I was like, oh, this is, such a huge leap for me. And there's just so many things that are out there that aren't authentic and real and actually help you. And so I was really, really skeptical. Just kind of building that trust initially was a huge thing for me.
Spoke with a couple of days ago, and that was their thing. It sounds too good to be true because we go through the case studies and you see it on our website, and we go through what's possible, how your body can self-heal. And after somebody spent 10, 15 years on research and maybe tens of thousands of dollars on something, to hear that somebody can get better in 3 to 6 months, you go, yeah, probably not going to happen. But I think that you made that decision as your last Hail Mary. Maybe this, if doesn't work, what else works? So it is a valid fear for most of us, especially when there's money involved. So I acknowledge that and I appreciate it. So skepticism aside, you at one point had to say, I'm going to trust the process. And you know how we go through diet and deficiencies and everything else and all other things. What was the most amazing thing to you that you didn't think would be a part of your healing, but it was?
Well, first of all, initially, diet was the key for me. I didn't think I was eating terribly. I'm a pretty healthy person. I'm, an athletic person. And so I've always been healthy in my choices, not always the best, but pretty healthy. And so when I changed my diet, that was absolutely one of the most critical things. Because when I changed my diet, then I started feeling better and I had more energy. And then once I was able to feel better physically, then I was able to start working on some of the emotional and, just some of the mindset type of things.
Percentage wise, Tammy, if you had to look so retrospectively, so in the beginning, diet is of paramount importance. But as we always work through the process, we see that mindset starts becoming important. Since you mentioned that, percentage-wise, if you were to look back when it came to your success, how much was the diet important in your progress and how much was mindset?
Oh, that's a hard question because they're so equally important for me. Because first of all, the diet was a little bit overwhelming for me at the beginning because I had to really change a lot of things. And I remember you saying, well, the diet's the easy part. And I said, the diet's the easy part.
Then what else is harder than this, right?
And so I was a little concerned about that, but you were actually right in that, once I figured out the diet, it took me probably, I don't know, maybe like 2 weeks or so to really kind of feel comfortable with the diet. And then after that, it was where then I really started to have to work with the mindset and just the changing my thinking and, just really seeing my own value and how to approach life. And so I'd say the diet ended up probably being maybe 25%, where the mindset ended up being probably 75%. But the diet's a huge part of it as well.
It is. It is. So we came with that disclaimer. The diet is the foundation. So there's in the beginning, it's 100% success. But like you said, after 2 weeks, you start looking back and saying, what else, because we have had women who have optimal diets. They're squeaky clean and yet they're sick. So we know there's more to life and to health than that. So to hear a professor say that the diet was 25 and 75 to mindset, it's really a huge stretch for most of us to think that our mindset has so much to do with it. Can you tell me a little bit of your mindset genesis and how eventually it allowed you to reconnect in your marriage and make it what it is now?
Yes. I really had to just really look internally and see how I was responding to things. But really, it was more of just kind of discovering my worth and discovering a new vision for myself. I think that's one of the huge things in this program is that you start to enlarge your vision and things that seemed impossible before all of a sudden are possible and attainable. And I think that was probably a huge factor for me is, well, why am I just settling for this when I could have all of this? And, I'm still not 100% there, but I definitely have changed the way I'm viewing, what I want for myself and what I can attain.
And what do you feel was the part of your self-discovery and realizing that you are not only worthy of all those things, but you deserve them, that allowed you to make the shift in your health and in your marriage into basically 180 direction?
Right. So once I started seeing my own worth, then I was able to I kind of started looking at things like, what do I want to do today? What can I enjoy today? What can I do to help myself get healthier? I have 3 children, I have 3 teenagers, so that's a task in itself sometimes. But the thing that I found is that the healthier I became, the healthier my marriage became, the healthier my relationships with my children became. And, as mothers, we all kind of have that guilt, mother's guilt a lot of times. And, I have children that are super involved in all kind of activities and things. And so I was always running and doing everything for them. But to be able to understand that, I have to take care of myself so that I can take care of them, and having that whole self-fullness versus selflessness or selfishness was a huge factor. And then, like I said, once I kind of discovered that and started taking care of myself, then my relationships all improved.
Fantastic. And at one point, did you begin to notice a reduction in your symptoms?
Oh gosh, in the first probably week or 2, I started to already have change. Just the diet alone will improve your symptoms. Before I even got to any of the mindset kinds of things, just the diet itself, and in probably 2 weeks, I was already feeling better.
Yes. So statistically, because we measure everything here, when I looked preparing for this interview, you were at 62, I think, % improvement within 2 weeks, at 70 plus at 3 or 4 weeks. And that was a huge leap. And by the time you were done in 12-week time, we had you clocked at about 91%. Mm-hmm. How has that journey been for you? Because you had to negotiate your progress with your doctors as well.
Yeah, so it's definitely a journey. It's a good journey, but it is a journey. And some people have an easier journey, and some people, as far as symptoms, sometimes people have not too many, or their symptoms kind of disappear and then they just continue to improve. Well, that was not exactly the case for me. And so for me, what my body did was it would get better, the symptoms would decrease and I would feel better. And then I actually would have my labs done, and then I would need a medication change because my labs would be off. And so my doctor would lower my medication. And I actually had to really kind of advocate for myself to lower the medication because I started off at 125 micrograms. And to my physician, usually they just lower it by one dosage step at a time. And I didn't want to wait that long because I knew that this was helping me.
You're a very ambitious person, right?
So I really advocated for myself to decrease to like 25 micrograms at a time. And my physician was really leery to do that, but she agreed. And then, I got to the next point, and then I had my labs again, and then they were low again. And so I had to have the same conversation with her. And so then, she lowered it again. And so currently I'm on 75 micrograms. So not completely off of it yet, but I went, I think probably maybe like 5 dosage steps in 4 months, 3 months, 3 or 4 months.
3 months. And that's after how many years on medication?
At 25 years.
So the prevailing belief out there is once you're on medication, you cannot come off, which we deal with that sense of belief in the program is your life is what you decide it to be. It's not that we disregard our human body, but that means we make the body work for us. So for you, that's not 75, what is it at about, not 50, it's about 40%, right? Reduction in 3 months. After 20 years, probably still a huge leap according to your doctor.
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely. Oh, and also my cholesterol went from
that one.
Yes. So because I shouldn't say, I don't know if it's because of the keto diet, but for me, when I went on the keto diet, my cholesterol got super high, and I was actually at 259, which, not the typical build for a 259 cholesterol level, but I was at 259, and in 2 months I was down to 154. So I had a 105-point decrease in my cholesterol in 2 months with the change.
I will never forget that post that you shared in a client.
Yeah.
I remember it. That was a big celebration. So also quite shocking, right? Because most people don't believe you can reduce it that fast, but for you it was. So with cholesterol decreasing, with your thyroid number stabilizing, with going down on medication, were you also able to get rid of or reduce your supplement load because you said you were taking about 20-some?
Yes. So I got rid of everything except one. So I am only on one supplement now, and I love that. I don't have to take all of the supplements every day.
And with this, Tammy, so we know it's not a perfect journey. Actually, we've seen some perfect journeys when somebody starts and there's no symptoms. I had clients sometimes no symptoms in a matter of about 4 or 5 weeks, but then there's process. We actually honor the process because your body is able to heal through it. For you, it was quite a quick process. Have you noticed that yourself, because and we do talk about this a lot, that when you get a taste of something that can happen for you fast, you almost forget how bad things used to be, and so you become impatient with your progress. Had you experienced that?
Absolutely, yes. I had such a significant change initially, in the first 2 months. And, so I was on this goal of, okay, well, I'm going to be at this level of Synthroid at this time, and this level of Synthroid at this time, and then, I'll be completely medication free at this time. And there was, my last lab was normal. It was still in the normal range, but it wasn't low, so my doctor wouldn't decrease it. And so, that was for me initially, I was frustrated. And then I kind of reframed it of, okay, well, I was on 125, 3 months ago, and I'm still in the normal range, and I'm still continuing to do what I'm doing, and I'll continue to heal. I just, through the program, found a pattern that my body goes through where when I have a medication change, then I start to get some of those symptoms back for a period of time until my body can readjust to it. And so I just think this last time is just, the length of time is a little bit longer, but I still declare every day I'm medication free and I'm symptom free and I'm pain free. So I really know that I will eventually be completely medication free.
Starting off as a skeptic completely in all of this, to get in 91% of your symptoms were gone with your dosage reduction, have you become a believer?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Yes, I tell everybody. So I'm always telling people, about my journey. And I think I've converted a few people with their diets, just in conversation at like family reunions and things. But, people just that I work with, people will just say that they can see a difference in me. My husband can see a difference in me. So I'm definitely a believer and 100% believe in this program.
Fantastic. Well, what was the hardest and what was the most enjoyable part of the program for you? And the journey. So not just the program, but your healing process.
I would say initially the hardest part was the change in diet, but it is completely 100% worth it. But that was probably the hardest part at first, initially. And then probably the hardest part would have been, I guess, just like that last part where my body's not quite on the same timetable as I wanted it to be. But I do understand that it's a process and everyone responds differently. So that was probably the hardest part. The easiest part is when you have like this victory and you feel better and then you're like, oh, this is also worth it. So I've had to really adjust with my family eating as well. And so like I cook all whole grain plant-based now for all of my family. And, that was kind of hard at first for my children and my husband to adjust to, but they're adjusting and they're not 100% on, what I'm eating, but they're actually starting to say, oh, this really tastes good. Or, they're getting used to it. And so that is, all worth it. The easiest part is when you have results and then you see that all this work is worth it.
And I actually was going to ask you about your family. So they're on board now, have the kids. So you said your husband had noticed a change in you. Mm-hmm. Have your children noticed anything different about you and how you are?
Well, they're teenagers, so they don't probably verbalize that kind of thing. But I do notice that an improved relationship or engagement or interaction with them, I think I'm more patient, with them. My husband is partially on, with his eating habits, not 100%, but he's definitely made changes as well. And he'll even say that he can feel a change in himself, or he'll say, I feel less edgy when I eat like this. When he then goes off and eats whatever he wants, he's like, oh, I feel, he can feel that edginess again. And so he can definitely see a difference.
Okay, so now this is a big question. Thinking back just under right around 4 months ago before we started, and now, in which areas, when it comes to your symptoms, have you seen the most progress?
My mental outlook, I think, in being able to, just kind of deal with everyday stresses, has been really a huge thing for me. And I'm having more energy because I'm back to running again. So I'm running probably, I'd say like 3 to 5 miles at a time now, where I wasn't doing anything before. And so, just to be able to regain those things that I love to do again. And it's been a huge factor for me.
Yeah, well, fantastic.
Yeah.
If you were to give one piece of advice right now to any woman that is listening to you, what would it be?
Well, I would say first that I believe that all things are possible and that it's definitely worth it. You're worth it to make a difference for your own life. And that was something, I'm going to actually get kind of emotional here. But finding, that I was worth it to make that change, that definitely you're worth it to make that change for yourself.
Thank you for getting emotional.
Yeah.
We can all cry. I will never forget your graduation day, the day before. So I usually, we have the day, we have our intake calls with clients, we have weekly calls, and then I have graduation calls because we celebrate everything that we can get our hands on. And so Tammy had filled out her graduation form. I'm filling it out, and I pulled up her enrollment call, and I pulled out the call, I think, actually it was when we spoke. And when I pulled up, it was very emotional for me because I remember you transforming week by week. You went from very sad, where you were in a darker place emotionally, to you were just beaming with joy. Mm-hmm. And you certainly were a pillar in our community when you were there. And to compare the two, when I looked at those, I was tears. I was like, oh my God, what a great transformation to go from tears to joy to happy tears. Mm-hmm. So it gets me emotional every single time, but just to see you succeed is exactly what keeps me going. Mm-hmm. So you're worth it. You ladies are all worth it. You do this for you. Yes, we do it for our families. Yes, we do it for our children and husband. But as Tammy pointed out, the transformation in her relationships began after she began to value herself and to heal herself. And as she healed, so did the relationships. So there's this direct correlation between your physical and your mental health and your relationships. Would you agree?
Absolutely. Yes.
Tammy, any final thoughts from you?
I was just thinking about when you're talking about that video, what a difference. So initially in the program, you create kind of an introduction of who you are video. And then it just so happens at the end of my program, I created this other video of sort of my vision of where I want it to be after I created it. And I just thought, well, I'm just going to look between the two of them. And so I looked at the first one and I just couldn't even believe like how different I looked and how different I sounded and how different, you know, I didn't even realize it, but I could actually see it in the videos of just my entire being and who I was had completely changed and transformed. And I didn't even know I was that bad at the beginning until I could see how much better I could actually get.
Yeah, and isn't it amazing to see that? So the changes happen so sometimes slowly. Okay, 20 years sick, 3 months is really fast, but within those 3 months, that's 90 days of slow changes over a period of time until they snowball into something big. But it is transformational to see your own transformation. Now, I was going to ask you this question, but Heidi beat me to it. What's the next step? What are you going to do that has been on the back burner now that you're feeling better?
One of my goals was to get to the point where I can run, not competitively, but just in an event. So I'd say my next step would probably be running a half marathon again, and then eventually a marathon. And then ultimately my plan is the Boston Marathon. But I'm going to take my next step, which would be a half marathon.
So you're actually talking to the right person, because Heidi graduated last year. And her goal was to go back to running because she loves running. That's what she lives and breathes. And her goal was marathons. She did, Heidi, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was 3 marathons. And in more than one of them, I think she qualified for Boston. Mm-hmm. And I think she'll be doing that next. So maybe you two can be companions.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Oh, fantastic. And thank you so much, Tammy, for being here with us, for volunteering your time, for paying it forward to others so that you can be inspiration for somebody else to change your life. This is exactly what we're about, transforming our lives, transforming our clients' lives so that you can go back to being effective and living your life to the fullest. No more pain and no more supplements that are not necessary, and no more wasting time and money on things that do not work. No more increasing your medication to the point where it makes no sense anymore, and no more giving up on life, but rather now planning your life. And that video of Tammy planning her future was amazing. We did an exercise on it. So planning your life and then knowing that you actually will have the energy and the health to live up, to be there and to do that is exactly what we're about. So if you're at a point that you'd like to speak with us to see what's possible for you, like it was possible for Tammy, it is www.360impacthealth.com/schedule. We have a complimentary 15-minute call during which we're going to be able to see whether we can help you or not. That was a call that Tammy had at one point with us. And now 4 months later after the call, we're able to be here. So let's see what's possible for you. There you have it. Did you enjoy today's podcast? If you did, make sure to subscribe to my show. And don't forget to tell others about it too. If you'd like to get more information about me and what I do, how I help amazing human beings just like you achieve their optimal dream health, go to www.360impacthealth.com to the contact page and shoot me a note. Thank you so much for listening. I will catch you on the next episode of the Health Wizard podcast.